Appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love to another edition
Yeah.
of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave that 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. We just got done talking about should the Chicago Bears bench Tyree Stevenson after his costly mistake that leads us to talking about one of the most devastating losses we've had this season. Now I want to get into the Rome Odunze, the offensive side of the conversation, because Rome Odunze is an interesting. He's being used in a very interesting way. He's basically been that third guy on the field more times than not. By the way, hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. He's basically been that third guy on the field more times than not. But my thing is, what we've seen him do with his targets when he does get them is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And my question on the table today, is it time to get Rome Odunze the ball more, whether that's on Caleb Williams, whether that is on Shane Waldron? Is it time for him to become a bigger focal point of this team? And I mean, listen, not to say that the yards were crazy on Sunday, but he was the only person who it felt like consistently could get was getting open and could get his shot called at any point, and he could bring the football in. He was 3 for 6 for 41 yards on the day. But I mean, just open when you watch the all 22 all day, had opportunities, had passes that could have been thrown to him. One of those targets for Rome was absolutely wild. I mean, just thrown completely over his head. Actually, a couple of them were, but when given an opportunity to make a play on the ball, I thought that he did a really good job doing that. We saw he was 2 for 2 in the Jacksonville game, only 2 targets, still able to get 40 yards. He was 5 for 6 in the Carolina game, 40 yards on that. Only got 3 targets in the Rams game, 1 reception there. Indy was the big game there, 112 yards, 6 for 11. And a touchdown on the day. I just feel like Rome Odunze has so much more impact. He's such a mismatch for DBs so often that it's time to look his way a little bit more. 6'3", 220 pounds. That's not an easy player for people to deal with. We know that they're focusing more on DJ Moore, and it's very difficult to get him involved in the game plan, which is irritating my soul. But there's also not to say there's a lack of focus, but you're usually getting the third DB on Rome.
Yeah.
And I think that you gotta focus on him a little bit more moving forward.
I'm all for that, and it looks as if the connection to Rome Odunze is just it's becoming easier. It's like they have that comfortability kind of down packed. You know, every time you pass it to him. I mean, on the season, he's averaging 14.4 yards per reception. You got to give it to him a little bit more. He's been a good downfield threat. Whenever Caleb does connect downfield, it seems as if he's connecting with Rome Odunze perfectly. Like we saw it in the preseason. We saw whenever Caleb is accurate downfield, it's usually to Rome. Outside of this game, obviously, when he was double teamed, we did see a few that weren't on him. I believe he got thrown behind to start the game as well. So a few of those receptions, it wasn't as if it was on him. It was just not really targeted well. But this is a guy who is again showing every time.
Now
here's a guy who's showing every time he gets the ball, he's able to get a little yak as well. I mean, the way he moves for his size is it could be special, and it's looking special. I mean, I remember one play where I think it was tight space. Looked as if he was going to go down after the catch, and I think he wiggled past one guy, then got past another. Almost got the first down on one play. Like, so you're looking at someone who is getting comfortable. Every time his number is called, his name is called, he's ready. And so, yes, I would love for that connection to kind of heat up a little bit more. It seems as if it's even more comfortable than with DJ, if I'm being honest. Now, I'm not saying that Rome Odunze needs to be your number one, but you need to start looking him at possibly as your number 2. And then Keenan Allen being that safety valve, as we always talked about on the third downs. You know, when you need somebody to go to in those emergency moments, that's your Keenan Allen, throw. But Rome Odunze is starting to in my opinion, make a name for himself to the point where, yes, get him more targets, because the game where you gave him more targets, he came out with a really good game. I believe he had, 6 for 11 targets in the Indianapolis Colts
Yeah,
game,
112 yards
112
and a
yards.
touchdown.
Yeah, that's what you want to see. Give him more targets. I think
Yeah,
he's
and
earned it.
listen, he's a deep ball threat. And Caleb's deep ball has been not where you want it to be to start the season.
Not
We
what we
can't even
thought.
pretend
Yeah,
about that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But he's a deep ball threat to start your year off. You got to get him the football more. He's kind of got that DJ Moore mentality a little bit where he tries to go through everybody once he catches the ball, but he's also got the breakaway speed. Like, I don't understand how, as far as this offense as a whole, I don't understand how it's so difficult to get our wide receivers involved. I get certain things, right? Like, listen, and the big thing for me is you need to address the offensive line. You can't block. You're not going to make things work. We said that all year. Doesn't matter if you get all these fancy receivers in here. Guess what? If you can't protect Caleb's not going to be able to get the football to him. But the fact that we're starting to use DJ Moore as a running back, and that's not just a this week thing.
mm-hmm. We've
That's
done it a number
a
of times.
multiple weeks thing. Like, this is one of the most confusing conundrums I think I've ever seen in football, that you can't get a 3 wide receiver set involved consistently. And especially when you're talking about especially when you're talking about guys like Rome Odunze who have mismatches more often than not.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the thing for me that is kind of weird about how Shane Waldron is directing things, that I think really is hurting the Bears moving forward, that I think is going to hold the Bears back. And listen, I told y'all coming in, I had my concerns about Shane Waldron. I was skeptical about Shane Waldron. I think he may be one of the reasons why the Bears do end up moving on from this coaching staff, because I don't think you can just keep swapping out offensive coordinators here, because offensive coordinators don't really get better. They usually are the coordinator that they are.
Yeah.
And so, like, very rarely, I never remember that Sean McVay moment where I was like, I don't think he's got it. I never remember that even a Cliff Kingsbury moment where I was like, this guy doesn't get offenses. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have that moment. I've had that moment with every OC we brought in here.
Yeah.
I literally looked at Shane Waldron, and not to say things aren't open, not to say things aren't developing, and an offensive line helps that woefully, and we'll talk about that as well, because I think there may need to be an addressing of that. But you can't find ways to get DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze involved in this offense, and your quarterback can't seem to hit screen passes on a consistent basis. That's a problem. That's a real problem.
It is a problem, and you mentioned it. We've got enough talent on this side of the ball where that shouldn't be an issue. I mean, that was the whole point of us bringing in guys outside of DJ Moore, is because you saw success happen when it was just DJ Moore. So we thought, hey, okay, you add a premier receiver in Keenan Allen, even though he's getting a little older in age, he's still a guy that gave you, over 1,200 yards in the games that he played. He's still a premier route runner. Like, you thought you were really getting some elite talent, and you are. But it's a matter of how you use it. Again, right? I talked about personnel throughout the beginning of this season and putting them in the positions to succeed. Well, in this past game, like you mentioned, in the beginning of the game, there were people that were open. It's just that Caleb was off. But I mean, overall, yes, you need to get these guys more involved. It's unacceptable to have these receivers say that they're so talented, but then they only get 2 targets or 3 targets. DJ Moore should not be getting 3 targets in a game. That's utterly unacceptable. He should be getting 3 targets in the first drive, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So there needs to be an attention to that as well. Like, you get the pass game, which is why I said I didn't have a problem with Caleb, when he threw a lot of passes. I don't have an issue with him throwing a lot. If we're scheming up these receivers to get open and creating space away from the DBs. But it's a matter of, okay, now you just got to be on point with getting it there. You got to be accurate. You have to make sure that you're throwing these receivers open. And I think Rome Odunze is a guy who can do a little bit of everything, which is why you drafted him 9th. You used your pick, and there's a lot of different ways that we've been arguing you could have went. You could have went with an offensive lineman. You could have went with a Jared Verse who is killing. There's a lot of different directions you went. So you need to make sure you're utilizing that pick now, and Rome Odunze needs to be more of a spotlight.
Yeah, it's the fact that it's a top 10 talent, and we're having the we're having the conversation once again on how do you utilize a top 10 talent? How do you get a
Mhm.
top 10 talent involved? And listen, guys, I may be the only one here that feels this way. Screen passes aren't bad. Caleb's got to hit them.
Yeah.
Screen passes work. Now, do I like the DJ more on the one screen pass? No. And I think that was probably an RPO call that Caleb Williams decided to throw that football and try, because the DB was playing so far off that he thought he could fit that in there and DJ would be able to get the yard on that. DB broke downhill really fast. It was a really good play by him. And he was all over it completely. And you don't end up getting the yard there. But I'm not sitting here losing my mind at screen passes. You know what I'm losing my mind at? The fact that Keenan Allen's standing wide open on one and he has to look up and go, what the fuck? Because you just sailed it 15 feet over his head.
Yeah.
Like Sunday was a collective, everybody needs to figure out how to get their heads out of their you-know-whats.
Yeah.
And we gotta get this together. And in the fourth quarter, you kind of did do that. In the fourth quarter, you started to figure some things out. You started to move things in the right direction. Then all of a sudden, right, you're up with an opportunity to win this game called winning ugly. But like it's tough on an offensive coordinator, and we're very tough on offensive coordinators here in the city. It's tough on an offensive coordinator when your line is failing as consistently as it is. When everything is working, your quarterback is throwing the football over people's heads, and or when the other two are working, you're calling a play that it just looks like absolute dog crap, which is handing the football off to your backup center. And I'm watching this popped up on my screen just now. Dan Orlovsky is sitting here talking about how the play call is fine.
Here we go.
But you got to make a better handoff. Yeah, no.
Here we go.
Yeah, no.
Don't you dare say that was a fine play call. It was a horrible play call.
There's no way, dog.
Let's not start with that crap.
I don't got it,
Too early in the morning, Dan. Too early in the morning, Dan.
Like, that's not a bad play call. I'm here for that. How? That's what I say. You hand it off to the guy that's never carried a football in his life. Let's keep this thing moving along, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, showing love. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do.